What is an accountability pod, and should you have one? I'm Kathy Vartuli from theintimacydojo.com, and I'm here with Victor Salmon from victorsalmon.com. Victor, thanks for being here. I love the work you're doing on this. For people that don't know, and there's a lot of people that don't, they're relatively new, what is an accountability pod?
An accountability pod is a bridge to help us better interpret and understand how complicated social situations can be. Basically, the way that I see accountability pods is it's a bridge between three stakeholders. It's a bridge between you, and it's especially important if you're an educator or in any form of position of power, the community, and the other people that you interact with that you may inadvertently do harm to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So essentially, a person who has who perceives that harm is done to them or has harm done to them, I'm sorry, that's totally inappropriate. I should say has harm done to them, would report you either to your accountability pod to sort of help you make changes and continue to do personal growth, or would start a formal inquiry process. So there would be several options to using the pod, but it's really just a bridge between those three stakeholders.
Yeah, I think that's wonderful, because I think a lot of times there's ways, totally inadvertently, we can step on someone else's toe, mm-hmm. or trip somebody in a consent area without meaning to at all. I know that for myself, I've been examining a lot of things around privilege, how much power I have in the community, and not being aware. I tend to be very shy, so I tend never to think anyone has less power than me. But we often perceive each other as having less power. Like, our internal perceptions of where power lays are they're invisible to each other in a lot of ways. And so I may say something to someone that they take as coming from a position of power and pushing them to do something when I'm very genuinely not meaning it that way. And it's really hard for us to see that, to bridge that, unless we have someone that can hear us in a neutral path and like, oh, this is what's happening.
Mm-hmm. That's a great point that you brought up, invisible power dynamics. It's super easy as a person who's been socialized to be a man, mm-hmm. how that power comes across in the way that I'll approach situations or ask for resolution or not feel any guilt in asking someone else to do emotional labor for me, those sorts of things. Mm-hmm. And if that's happening in the context of negotiating something delicate like a BDSM scene or sex, those sorts of things can potentially have very lasting, significant harm done to people. And when a person like myself that has certain advantages, when a person like that negotiates something, it's easy to miss how easily consent can be coerced by those invisible power dynamics that you brought up.
Yeah, and I know that for myself, I have an abuse history. I've done so much healing, and most of the time I'm just fine. My no is very clear, and I can, I feel like you're pushing me or whatever. Like, I can speak up for myself. But if I've had a bad day, or just like a bad week, a lot of things, like my tank is really empty, so to speak, it may be a lot harder for me. And I know that I work with trauma survivors, and you have a lot of experience as well. There are certain situations for even very healed people that can just like freeze them, and we get triggered, and then our brains don't work the same way just because of the trauma, the trauma response that we're experiencing. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So having some place that you can go to talk to a neutral third party or group that can support you, I think that's beautiful.
Yeah, I'm personally a very staunch advocate for separation of roles on an accountability pod, with having individual members that focus on only one stakeholder instead of everyone trying to balance everything. Because balancing between two disparate realities that are presented, mm-hmm. I mean, there is no one truth as to what happened anyway. Yeah. But often get these conflicting accounts of situations or really conflicting feelings on the same event that happened.
Yes.
And there's this assertion of intentions that must have been present or all kinds of allegations, and what it comes back to is, I think people need to first feel heard and acknowledged before you can even move forward into an accountability process.
Right.
And don't have a dedicated member of your accountability pod that is going to hear those people out and be to the best of their ability on their side, essentially, and help them feel heard and acknowledged.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily going to be as functional a process.
That's really interesting. I like that, because I know that if you have 3 people in a room, you can have about 5 opinions on things. And it's not saying that if someone says they were harmed, that they weren't harmed. It's just that how we perceive that harm and whether the person intended it and how it actually landed to other people is very different. We all have masks, experiences that create masks that we see the world through. And having one person that's the point person for any issue, I think that's really, I like that a lot. Rather than trying to get a bunch of people together, time schedule, we're all busy people, and trying to balance that, all the different views. You just have one person deal with helping them feel heard and seen.
Absolutely. And just because you're, say, I've named in my pod the liaison member, just because that liaison is helping that person feel completely heard and acknowledged doesn't necessarily mean that there is going to be a desired outcome, unfortunately, from an accountability process. And I think being on that person's side allows the liaison to set healthier expectations early in saying, I am hearing what you're saying to me. I will do what I can to help. Yeah. I'm not sure that this process is going to have an outcome where it'll be a perfect world afterwards and you'll be magically healed and everything will just go perfectly, etc. However, it can do certain things. Here's what it can do. Here are the processes I can help you with. And here are some resources I would love to connect you with to help you on your journey. Yeah. So it's very much meant to be this utility that sort of bridges some of that social friction that you get when these invisible power dynamics really screw us over, because they do.
Yeah, they do. When I'm interacting with people, I think that I'm pretty tuned in general. I work with trauma survivors a lot, but I don't know what they're coming from, how their day has been, how their life has been, right. What beliefs they have, or we all have expectations. Like, I know my first girlfriend and I would get in fights because I just put out the fork on the right and she put it on the left, and she's like, why are you, like, as silly as it is, and I'm not trying to trivialize the topic at all, but we all have expectations of how humans should interact that we got from our originating culture that we carry forward. And unfortunately, we don't have a way to, like, a computer screen that comes down and says, this person expects this, so we can talk about it.
Yeah. It's one of the reasons I love Marshall Rosenberg's nonviolent communication or compassionate communication framework. Yeah. Being able to be so personally accountable and frame things in terms of one's needs is so valuable. And that's actually how I came up with my approach, my three-pronged approach to creating an accountability pod, was looking at what needs aren't being met and how can we sort of appoint people to meet those needs.
Oh, wow. I want to hear more about that. This video is running long. Can we stop and come back and talk about your three-pronged approach? Because I want to hear more.
Let's do that. I love it.
Great. Thanks very much, everyone. Leave comments below, and you can support Victor's work at patreon.com/Victor Salmon. And I'll leave the link below.
Thanks. Bye.